Okay.
What a disaster of an episode this has been. Oh my God.
2 hours.
This is, I hate filming remote. First off, I hate filming remote. I hate filming with no prep time to think about all of my positions. I haven't, like it's just everything about it. We're just a friggin' mess today. I'm spitting everywhere. This is going to be a long, painful edit.
Hello and welcome back to Reactivity TV. I'm Amy Albero and I'm a licensed therapist.
I am Chris. I'm not a licensed therapist, but what I am is America's reality TV honesty broker. And I am going to be working overtime for you today to bring you the reality of what we actually watched in this last episode, episode 9. There are going to be a lot of people that are going to try and convince you of things that are not true. Things like the men spilled the tea. I'm here to tell you there was no tea that was spilled. It was at best tepid, lukewarm water that's been sitting on the counter all evening. There are going to be people out there that are going to tell you that Jen was this empowered, strong female this episode. I'm here to tell you, not in fact true. In fact, if anything, she was the exact opposite. There are also going to be people that are going to tell you that this was a fantastically live, unscripted episode. I'm here to tell you, also, not true. This was probably the most scripted and painfully just contrived episode of the entire season. And this, my dear viewers, is the first time this entire season that I have used the word contrived, I believe. So that's worth noting. So shall we tell people what we're doing here?
Yes, you gave me no time at all to react to all of what you were saying. So I will do that. But before we do, for all of you watching, as Chris mentioned, we are here talking about Jen Tran's season of The Bachelorette, season 21, episode 9, also known as The Men Tell All, plus a little resolution to the quote unquote cliffhanger from the previous night's episode. So that's what we're doing here today. Is there a lot to talk about? I'm not sure. But I do think that, again, like we talked about in our last episode, while you can talk all you want about how contrived this was, there are still elements of reality in it. And there are still things that we can glean from the nonsense that we watched tonight. So I just want to make that clear. Okay. What else should everyone be doing?
Everyone should be hitting that bell icon, subscribing to the channel. We're getting very close to our goal of 1,000 subscribers. Once we do that, as we've said many times in the past, 1,000 subscribers is a really important milestone for us. We're getting really close. That's when we can start monetizing the channel and potentially, getting better editing, better, production quality and whatnot. So better equipment. And so we're really excited to be getting close to that mark. So please make sure you're subscribing, make sure you're hitting that bell icon, make sure that you are liking the video, and also make sure that you comment. We love the engagement. And the engagement helps us track higher into the charts and bring on more audience members. Let's get into opening thoughts. What were your thoughts of this episode? And let's just inform everybody, you were on a flight down to Miami. That's why we're recording remote this week. And so you and I did not watch the episode together. And so we also have not had a chance to even talk about it at all. So we are literally flying blind on each other's opinions this evening.
Okay, what are my thoughts? You're correct. Watching this episode was it was like an obstacle course. My flight was delayed. I had no internet connection. Trying to watch it on the plane TV, on my iPad, on my phone, like anywhere I could try to find it, with bouts of then lots of turbulence and loss of Wi-Fi, was very challenging. And then tried to catch up today in bits and pieces. So my thoughts, though, despite it being like a little bit of a scattershot in the way that I was able to watch it, are that this episode, similar to the last, pretty consistent through lines here. I think there's a lot to be said about what accountability looks like and why it's important to do. I think the idea of you don't know what you got till it's gone is clearly a theme that we saw portrayed here. And then I think there is something about vengeance that is really important for us to talk about. And so like those were kind of the big things that I am coming away from this episode really thinking about. To get into the nitty gritty of it, like were there favorites that I saw tonight? Yes. Were there people that I didn't remember existed? Yes. And then were there people that I just continue to be disappointed by? Also, yes. I don't think that there were that many winners in this episode tonight. No one really got the redemption arc. And this is maybe like not to bury the lead. Like this is like the spoiler of my overall opinion. I just don't think people did enough, to get the redemption that they needed. And I think my winner of the night was Jeremy. And that's again, big spoilers with my thoughts there, but that's my summary. What about you?
Yeah. I share some sentiments. I mean, we all know from past seasons, I hate the tell-alls. This is what it felt like. It felt like I was watching people get a massage for 2 hours. Right. And by that, I mean, like, there was no hard hitting questions. There was no attempted accountability. There was really no tension to speak of in any meaningful way. It was, and Jesse has to do what Jesse has to do. But we all just like, it was an episode where Jen comes out and we all just massage, Jen's shoulders for 2 hours. Meanwhile, she did a lot of things that you could critique, but we're not allowed to critique it at all. That's completely off the table. Okay, fine. There were a lot of things that other people did that could have been critiqued and could have been asked about, and we could have gotten interesting questions and interesting dialogues, but they didn't go there in any meaningful way. All we got was, basically we gave Aaron a chance to have a redemption arc that he failed at, and we had Sam M have a chance at a redemption arc that he failed at. It was all just felt like nothing you're talking about I care about. The things I want to know you're not asking and you're not going to ask. You're just, it was like watching people get a massage for 2 hours. The whole thing just felt super scripted. None of it felt real. It's called reality TV. We know it's scripted to some degree, but at least try to pretend like we're not idiots in the audience, and they just couldn't do it this episode,
Right.
And then there were just a lot of other aspects of the show that I just thought were pretty painful to watch, which we can get into. But this was not an episode where I particularly enjoyed any segment. But I do agree there are things here to talk about relationship wise, and even less so than that. I think there's some interesting social dynamics that were at play in this episode, and there are interesting, I think, things we can take away about taking accountability, and about, how to take the high road, and when saying something, even if you're in the right, puts you in the wrong.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Okay, so let's get into the episode. Let's start with Devin. That's where we headed off with the episode. We left off last episode with him kind of spiraling. We had said that we thought that he had a good intuition as to how Jen actually felt. She had told Marcus that she loves him, and that's the only person that she has told. He goes to the room, knocks on the door, and that's where we cut out, and that's the cliffhanger. So Devin shows up into the room, and the events are basically Devin does Devin, right? Devin goes and he proceeds to be open, honest, genuine. The only authenticity perhaps in the entire episode is what we saw right here. And Jen, for her part, it felt like she was kind of prepped by production ahead of time. And she says some things that are kind of nice. And then she finally drops "Of course I love you, Devin." Now, Devin, of course
I love you, you freaking idiot, is what she said.
But here's the problem with this, right? It's like production. You're calling my eyes and my ears liars, right? You've just showed us an entire previous episode that's literally supposedly taking place on the same day that she's saying she doesn't love him yet. She doesn't, have those strong feelings for him. She doesn't really know why. And now here it is, it's a week in our time, but in actual, Bachelor time, it's been 20 minutes basically, right? And now suddenly she loves him. It was, I found that to be rather distracting. But look at the scene on a whole, it was a sweet scene. Yes, it felt like she was prepped, but you know what? It was sweet. Devin got what he wanted. They had a nice little conclusion.
Can I just say, well, first, I think it's hilarious that you just told us a lot about what your week's been like, because it has not been a week for us. Those episodes were hours apart. One was Monday and one was Tuesday.
It has been a very long week today. Can I just say it's been, you are right. It has actually only been a day and a half since we watched. Yeah, you're right. Wow.
Yeah. The other thing that I want to say, and I know that I say this to you so many times in our life, and it always surprises me at how much of a romantic, how much of a positive,
you are literally the only human being alive that thinks I'm positive and optimistic.
And I am the skeptic here. I like every time like this happens, I'm like baffled. So this is a cool thing about a relationship and marriage, is that you continue to be surprised by your partner. You continue to learn new things. I think it's very sweet that you think that this was sweet. I feel,
I didn't say I believe it. I thought it was sweetly cut and produced.
And maybe it's to your point about like feeling like production is trying to distract us with a sweet moment so that we forget what Jen said about not being there yet with Devin. So maybe like I'm watching this through the lens of like, I don't believe a word you're saying. And there's a lot of ways to look at what Devin did. Is what Devin did manipulative? That's a question. Manipulative has a negative connotation from a therapist perspective. Was he being resourceful? Absolutely. Was he feeling anxious and stressed and feeling out of control and feeling like he wanted a resolution? And so he, rather than wait in uncertainty, he confronted Jen and gave her lots of affirmation and invited her to essentially validate his feelings, affirm his feelings. So it was incredibly resourceful of him, is what I will say. I think that one thing that made me feel quite frustrated watching this, and I referenced this when I was talking about my feelings of the episode, is the thing that made me go, ugh, was when we hear Jen say, I can't imagine losing you. Like, I don't want to lose you. And so it kind of felt like she was giving him the I love you in exchange for him to remain her constant, her one consistent thing. What did he call himself? A safe option. And so that's where it didn't feel completely genuine, because she was like, okay, here's my solid, consistent guy. I cannot lose him. And is there maybe something to, again, the idea of you don't know what you've got till it's gone? Maybe, but that does not love make.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't disagree with anything you're saying. I think that at the end of the day, I don't view what Devin did as manipulative in any way, because he's the one person on this show that I actually believe is being genuine at all times. Right. I do actually believe that. And I believe that is how he's feeling. We've said it before. I think he's got very high social intuition. Right. He's got, and just general social awareness. And I think it was eating away at him as it's getting dwindled down. And I think it was the appropriate thing to do to go and have that conversation. So I don't view it as manipulative. I do agree with you that Jen, it felt a little transactional. I'm going to give you something so that you don't go home, because the way he opened up that conversation, there was a moment where I thought he might self-eliminate.
Right. Now, well, he went in prepared to go home. That was one of the things he said. Like, I'm likely going home after this. So he shot his shot knowing the risk. And probably 8 times out of 10, whenever a contestant goes to a lead's room to have a conversation like this, that's their exit. So the odds were not in his favor.
Yep, I agree. But in the end, it was a nicely produced. It was sweet. If you could ignore sort of the backdrop of everything else and the somewhat predictable, contrived nature of it all. But yeah, I go ahead.
Yes, fine. But I do want to come back to what Jen was saying. Basically, her justification, her response to him, and she basically describes that the reason that she is really struggling and withholding of her feelings is because she doesn't know how to be in a healthy relationship, that she isn't as good at expressing her feelings as Devin, and she wants to give him what he needs, but doesn't really know how to do that because, again, she doesn't really know how to be in a healthy relationship. That's probably all valid. What is also, again, very textbook in a lot of ways and very predictable is something that I referenced in our previous episode around Jen's attachment style. She's an anxiously attached person. Devin is more secure. Devin is saying, listen, I'm having a hard time here. I'm pulling away. I'm doubting my feelings. That is like catnip to an anxiously attached person. It's this, pursuer, this hand's supposed to be a stop sign. This like pursuer distancer thing that happens when someone pulls away, you then draw closer. And so she's showing us in real time what an anxiously attached person does when their anxious, attached system gets activated. And so in some ways, this worked in Devin's favor. I don't think he did it on purpose to try to manipulate Jen, but it worked because she is insecure in her attachment, because she does have an anxious attached system, and she is going to thirst for that kind of instability in the same way that she does with Marcus. All right, so let's move on then to the rose ceremony.
Yes. So I have a lot of complaints about this rose ceremony.
Okay.
And the complaints come entirely from the live audience. Okay. Because why were you shocked? What was with the reaction when Jonathan didn't get a rose? Like, what did anybody in America or Canada or UK or whatever other countries watch this not know that Jonathan was going home? Like, it's just mind boggling to me when all those people were freaking out and you got that big gasp, and I'm like, what? I was thoroughly confused. Like, what did you think was going to happen here? She told two guys that she loves them, and the guy she didn't tell she loved him to is the one who went home. The guy who we've been saying for weeks they're not compatible. The guy who we've been saying for weeks, is emotionally unavailable and is less emotionally unavailable than Marcus. So he's not going to beat Marcus for the anxious attachment style, and she doesn't rain down compliments on her like Devin does. He's literally in no man's land. Like, who in America thought that Jonathan wasn't going home to the point where they're gasping? I'm so confused. Somebody
their shock was shocking. I mean, I gasped at their gasp. I was like, what is happening? If I'm to give the audience empathy and like the biggest benefit of the doubt, the only way I could understand the reaction is that they really wanted Jen to want more for herself and not pick Marcus. Marcus has told you to your face, I do not love you. And I am putting myself in this audience, I guess. We just wanted Jen to have a little bit more self-respect here. And that she still kept this man around to fight another day, despite being so unavailable, was shocking.
Well, no, I think the more shocking thing was that, let's assume that your premise is correct, and that is why people were believing that. This actually wasn't the worst look for her in the episode, and this wasn't. This was actually maybe her high point in the episode. As crazy as that is to think. So yeah. So let's just stay on Jonathan for a second here. We do get him in the hot seat. What an absolute boring hot seat. I mean, again, we get back to that, just massaging, Jen's shoulders. There was nothing there. It was fluffy. He basically just repeated exactly what he said in his exit interview, which was just so tropey. It was just so like, okay, we can move on now. None of it was believable. All of it was performative. The only thing that I liked that he talked about was that Jen had the green dress on. And I do actually agree with him 100%. I have really liked Jen's wardrobes for the most part. The last two episodes, not so much. But and when he rattled off that he had the dress list with her, I was like, oh, that's a Chris thing. And when he started listing off the order of the dresses, I was like, yeah, I 100% agree. Hard agreement. So that was the only part that I found even remotely interesting about the Jonathan. It was not a hot seat. He was not asked any difficult questions. Like, why are we even calling it the hot seat? It's again, there was so many things that could have been
It's
asked of him.
lukewarm, tepid water seat.
I mean, it's one of those massaging loungers that you get at the mall and you stick like $1 in and it massages. That's what the hot seat is, right? It's not even that.
I want to do a word count on massage today. We are getting massages on Friday. Okay, just relax.
We are. It's our first massage in a long time. It was. Look, I like Jonathan so much. I think he's a really good, fun guy. I think he's a handsome guy. I think he's got a guy of high moral character. I think he has a lot of great qualities. But unfortunately, this was not. This was not shocking that he went home, and then he just did the exact performative stuff that we would expect, and none of it was believable, really, and none of it felt particularly genuine.
I have a crazy theory.
Okay.
But wait, I will share it in a second. But I agree that it was like a almost word for word repeat of the monologue. I thought that he was being really hard on himself as well.
I thought that was part of the performative aspect to it, right?
Yeah,
be self-deprecating, and that's some of the part of a show like this where be self-deprecating, make yourself seem more emotional, get the good edit, and get out of there. Alive, basically.
Yeah. And I think what I would have, and I'm with you. I like Jonathan. I don't think that I'm not criticizing anything that he said by any means. I think that probably all was very accurate. I think that he was hard on himself. What I would have liked to see from him was, again, it's been a couple of months since this happened. I would have liked to see some additional insight or ways that he is working on it or something to further his own plot here. Like, okay, great. I'm glad you still remember this and you learned this, lesson. Now what? How are we applying this insight? And so that was the thing I felt was missing. Like it was just very flat in terms of his,
arc.
Progress.
His lack of an arc, basically.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Okay. Yep. Here's my crazy theory.
Okay.
I think that Jen picks Devin. They are broken up. She is single. Jonathan knows that. And Jonathan is still shooting his shot for Jen.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So there's a whole meta play going on here.
They've rekindled in some way.
So you think there's a whole big meta plot going on?
I do.
Okay. Interesting.
That might have been because I was watching this episode in such a crazed state that I was like, this could be a thing. I'd be interested. I'd be on board. I think they'd be great to date. They needed more time.
Yeah. Look, I think the one problem with that theory, and this isn't really a particularly big problem, but presumably production would know all of that was going on. And they did invite him as the first invitee to Paradise.
What a great storyline that he has to decline his invite to Paradise because he already found love with the Bachelorette. Come on.
Hey, look, I hear you. I hear you. Maybe or maybe he just assumes that production assumes what I assume is that him and Jen wouldn't make it that long, and so he's going to be, even if they do date, that he's still going to be on Paradise. Or Jen ends up on the beach
anyway.
I can see her end up on the beach,
going to Paradise.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah. I think she would. I think she would carry a lot of weight and a lot of popularity on the beach.
I agree. I think she's better suited for Paradise.
Beautiful. Yeah. I agree with you there. Yeah. She's fun. She's beautiful. She's got a personality for it. She can't, as a lead, I don't think she can carry as a lead, but as one of several personalities, I think, especially somebody who I think people would be very interested in meeting, right? And unlike a Kylie, who everyone was interested in meeting Kylie last Paradise, Kylie was not somebody that I really understood why people were that interested in meeting. I fully understand why people would be interested in meeting Jen. And I think she would command that kind of interest
totally
from the other people on the beach. But
right.
But yeah, no, I don't think that's a crazy theory. We'll see how it plays out. But I think I could see it happening.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hey, we'll see.
Yeah. Should we move on to Aaron? The first piece of kind of slight maybe the first part of this episode, where instead of it being a nice relaxation massage, it was like a deep tissue massage. Like, it was a slight amount of discomfort in there, but it still overwhelmingly was like, oh, this actually feels pretty nice.
Okay. Second thing I'm going to take off the table, these massage puns. Now I've lost the analogy here. So just speak plainly to me about Aaron. What did you think about his time on the tell-all?
So Aaron and Sam M are the two that really needed the redemption arc here, right? And what you saw is that both of them took very different tacks when they're, kind of on the hot seat or getting asked questions about this. Sam M tucks his, tail between his legs and just concedes that everything he did was wrong and that he's growing and learning. The kind of the classic sort of, I've been canceled and I'm going to just try to pretend like I'm remorseful.
I'm not sure that's what happened, but we can get there.
Well, Aaron, on the other hand, takes the, I am going to die on this hill. Okay.
I did nothing wrong. I'm going to double down on what I did. I'm going to justify what I did.
And so this is, I actually really love looking at these kind of, as a, collectively, and just looking at and comparing and contrasting the two. Neither of them played. Neither of them were particularly effective, right? But they were really two very different tacks as to how you could approach this. Aaron, the problem was that nothing he was saying sounded genuine or was believable. Of course, he remembered that his brother had the book situation. The way he tries to come in and say, overplaying his relationship. Me and Jen had this great friendship, and I felt like I could be like this. It's like, we're watching the videos again. Similar to what I say to production. Don't tell me that my eyes and my ears are lying to me. I watched it. Right? I saw what you said and what you did. And even with the edit from production, the still came out of your mouth the way it did. I watched you on that couch. And so, yeah, the whole Aaron thing was a miss. You're not getting your redemption arc. None of it was genuine. Again, it felt very scripted. He knew what was going to happen when he came in here. And the one thing I can say I can give him credit for is that he was on script. He did not kind of go off script. He didn't get into any sort of like sideways conversations. He just said, no, I'm defending myself. I'm dying on this hill, and let it lie at that, and let people, and then got out of the way and ducked so that the rest of the fire could go at Sam M. Because that was his one big advantage, is he knew that he went out early enough and Sam M had a much bigger impact and needed the redemption arc more, that Sam M gave him cover to sort of die on the hill without taking too much shrapnel.
Yes, I think that's a really insightful kind of assessment of that play that he made. And that was true. And as you said, effectively what happened. I think, Aaron sounded so insincere, sounded so shallow, again, kind of recreating history. Not even his twin brother could back him. Like, that wasn't a good look.
Can we talk about the twin brother for a second here?
Sure.
So this is, again, you want to talk about dichotomies between Sam M and Aaron. What did Sam M's family do? Come out, full-throated support, defending him all over the internet. Aaron's twin brother comes out and throws him under the bus on national television. I mean, these two scenarios could not be more diametrically opposed. And I think it's so fascinating to see that even though they're completely opposite in so many ways, neither of them worked. And why did neither of them work? It boils down to one simple fact. Neither of them were genuine. Mm-hmm. They were both bullshitting us, and we all know it. Mm-hmm. And that's the key thing,
Yes, I totally agree. I think that Aaron plays at being likable, and and as a result comes off as very unlikable. So I'm happy to never see him again, although it wouldn't shock me if he ends up on Paradise. He's got to be
on Paradise, because he's one of those personalities who's just going to start with people.
Oh yeah.
And not in a way that like a Sam M or a Thomas N would. Unfortunately, now that we're back at the Men Tell All, we have to start reacquiring last name initials apparently. But he just seems like the type where they would want to put him on the beach.
Sure.
Like
yeah. He'll stir the pot. Yeah. He'll stir the pot. Yeah.
Yep.
And love it. Like that's his thing.
Yep. Okay. So what else? Anything else you want to talk about with Aaron?
Nope.
So from there, we move on to Sam N. I got one comment on this, and that's really all I got. And that was, I thought he defended himself so well because he did a fantastic job of contextualizing the timing. Again, we see this show a week at a time. To us, this is months. But it's really not that fast. He's like, yeah, I told her I loved her. And guess what? 3 days later, you told her, and 6 days later, you told her. So don't tell me I was that fast. And that's like a really important thing is he was able to simply contextualize it. He also poked fun at himself. Here's another authentic and genuine guy. You said Jeremy was the only guy that looked good this episode. I agree. Jeremy looked great. But actually I think Sam N looked really good too. And this is why. What's the first thing he did? I shot my shot. Yeah, I was awful. It was terrible. He was able to be self-deprecating. Mm-hmm. He was able to be funny. He was able to very succinctly contextualize, like, yeah, it actually wasn't that crazy, my timing, when you compare it against everything else. And then got out of the way, didn't fight with anybody. All the drama that he got into later on was kind of like, he just didn't really, it just didn't manifest on this show. I thought he had a fantastic showing. And while I wasn't a fan of his, I do think that he showed up and he showed out well on the couch.
Yeah, I'm not disputing any of that. I think because that's all true. I think he handled that well. I think I was so distracted by him coming in with the Jen's husband jersey and wearing the leather jacket that, he was very aware of the internet and its view of him, and he played into it. And maybe that's endearing, or maybe that's clout chasing. I don't know. But that's where I was kind of like it's really hard to buy that you're genuine here because of the way that you're physically showing up.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
But to your point, in terms of his performance, actually, when he was speaking, when he was saying the things, it actually sounded genuine. It didn't feel scripted like Sam or like Aaron or, like anybody else. It was the loosest, most kind of organic exchange that happened.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Anything else you want to cover on Sam N before we go on to Sam M?
So here's the thing about Sam. As you said, he was one of, I'd say more than two, but top two of people that really, really needed a redemption arc. And he did not succeed. Try as he might. And I think one of the biggest things that really stood out to me about him was that we are watching him. We're watching the package of him, being on the show, and we're watching him watch himself leave. And he doesn't know that we're watching him watch himself. And he has a smile on his face as he is watching himself walk out. And then Jesse asks him, "Hey man, how was that? How are you doing?" And he then becomes very aware that the camera is on him and he turns his face sullen. And that, I watched it last night. And then I watched it again today because I was like, maybe I'm just reading into it. And I was like, okay, this tells me everything I need to know about what's about to happen. What I will say for Sam, despite the emptiness of his words, which I'll get to, what I will give him props for is that his body and his tone remained very calm and very grounded. And that was important for him. That the way that he carried himself remained not angry, not aggressive.
It didn't escalate. Yeah,
it didn't escalate. It was like he took an edible before the show.
He didn't give people an opportunity to match his elevation or match his aggression. Yeah. He stayed calm, and this is part of the problem with Jen later is that he's remaining calm, he's apologizing, and she is escalating, and when one person's escalating and one person's not, the person who's escalating, regardless of gender, regardless of situation, the person who's escalating is the one who looks wrong. And the person who's remaining calm, even if the person who's calm is clearly and objectively wrong, the optics are terrible.
I totally agree. And that is what I like when we talk about Jen and Sam's interaction, that is what I think is really important, because he, in that sense, he did what he needed to do and he stayed non-reactive. And so I will give him so much credit for that, because he was the focal point. This episode was not about Jen, it was about him. And so he stood his ground from a body and regulation standpoint really well. A little bit too well at times. I would have liked to see like a little bit more emotion from him.
Well, that would have made for a better episode. I'm sure that's what production wanted as well.
Yeah.
But that was not going to help his edit any certainly.
No. And so, what Sam does is he basically says, listen, I'm not good at expressing myself clearly. I stand by the fact that I did love her. I want to address, I'm so glad you brought that up. I want to address the Dull comment. I want to address the Daisy Maria comment. And so like he was prepared with his statements, and it was, again, clear that he got prepped as well, but it didn't read right. It read scripted. The thing that I will give him the biggest criticism for was, in an apology, in any time we take accountability, we need to avoid this phrase. If you felt that way, or in his case, if it seemed like that, I apologize. That is not an apology. That is not taking accountability for your actions. Do better in that case, Sam. Like, you did not, like, there would have been so many things that he could have spoke to in a similarly grounded way that would have went really far. He could have talked about the fact that, like, yeah, maybe I got really wrapped up in the dynamics of the house, and that brought out this side of me that, watching it back, I'm really not proud of. Yeah, I did like let my focus stray to it being more about winning and beating Devin than about actually keeping the main thing. I wish that he talked about keeping the main thing in a more genuine way. Instead, he tried to spin it and say, if you're, in my mind, keeping the main thing is about love and marriage and building a family. And if you have a problem with that, then something's wrong with you. Like, it's like, no. You're off message here. So anyway, I don't necessarily need to belabor the point, but I felt like, gosh, he had so many opportunities here to set himself up, but he just couldn't do it. He couldn't take the L. He could not take the loss, which tells me that he really didn't think that he did anything wrong. And that I think is a problem. So there were, again, things that he did that were good, but he didn't do nearly enough to get him redeemed. He's now forgettable. Like, I forgot his name when we were texting about him last night. I was calling him Sean. Like, he's forgettable. He didn't do enough either way. Double down on the villain or be the hero. Do one or the other. And he did neither.
See, I was just going to ask you, how good would this episode have been if Aaron and Sam M had just swapped strategies? If Sam came out here and he was going to die on the hill, and Aaron put his legs, his tail between his legs and walked away. Like I actually think that this would have made for a really compelling show in some ways. And it might have actually been the more believable strategy for the two of them. Right. Yeah. You could believe a little bit more that Aaron maybe would go and say, hey, you know what? I watched back, I talked to my family, and you know what? Like, yeah, it was an ugly look. Sorry. That would have been believable even if he didn't mean it. And Sam M tucking his tail between his legs, not believable, but him dying on the hill, absolutely believable. Double down on that, be the villain, and cash your royalty checks. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think they needed to swap PR firms.
No, totally. It would have been so much more believable if he used all of his catchphrases. I wanted to hear 10 toes down. I wanted to hear I kept the main thing. I wanted to hear it from him with the enthusiasm that he brought it. Like, stand on it hard. Like, that was really disappointing. Like, it was like he was a pod person. Like, he was just, again, as I said, a skin suit. Like, there's nothing in there.
Yep, I agree. And so after that, that's when Jonathan came out, but we've already talked about Jonathan. So from there, we get the Grant, kind of announcement or, introduction, whatever we want to call it. I don't think there's much to talk about here. It felt, I already said it at the beginning.
He needs media training.
He's a nice guy. He's a genuine guy. The problem is that they, the franchise botched his introduction and he's not well media trained at this moment. He's not, I think when you catch him in, like when he's a cast member and he's just doing his thing and the camera's like around, but it's not really on him, it's on somebody else. He really shines. And as of right now, when the camera is on him, you're seeing like maybe the lights are just a little bit too big for him right now.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
I think he needs to get a little bit of practice because it's not compelling right now.
I totally agree. It reminds me of us and our wedding photos, like great candid, awful posed.
Oh my God. The second we look at the camera, they were awful. Yeah. Thank God that we had a photographer who figured that out real quick.
Yeah. And so like he just needs to get more comfortable like in the spotlight being the lead. I think he can be a great lead. I think once he's in the role, he will be great. It's just like all of these like more formal interviews that are a little bit more stiff. It's hard to get your personality to come through, but I feel like he's a really dynamic, charismatic guy. I cannot wait to watch his season. It's just like the lead up is a little. He needs some time, and it's like good on ABC to maybe recognize that he's going to need a little bit more support in that way, as many of us would. By the way, not a criticism of Grant.
Not a knock. Yep.
So like I imagine that when we see him after Joan's season or whenever they bring him out next, like he's going to have grown a lot already. Joey was the same way.
Yeah. Look, I like Grant. I think he could be a compelling lead, but time will tell. He definitely needs a little media training. And after Grant, we get Jen herself, and I have to agree with Jonathan. I loved the green dress; it was beautiful. She's back to form. We've had a couple episodes where her fashion has not been on par. Now she's back to her fantastic wardrobe. That being said, this was hard to watch because she had said it at the beginning of the episode during the Devin thing, and we've seen it trailered and teased several times. Am I doing a bad job? And there's, she says that during the Devin, the face camera for Devin. And I've said every time I see that, like, yeah, at times you are doing a bad job. And I do think that when you put somebody in the hot seat on here, there's an opportunity to ask them. And I know they're the lead and we have to use them with kid gloves, right? And I get that. And you don't want to beat your lead down, but like there was an opportunity there to ask some really interesting questions about her experience, right? And about things that she would have taken back or things that she thinks she did wrong, or who is the guy that she eliminated too early? Who's the guy she kept, too long? Like there's so many great questions that you could ask that, you're not putting anybody on blast or anything like that, but these are questions that like I would be curious to know, things that could tell us about her journey.
Or even watching it back, like what surprised you, like knowing what you know now from what you've watched back, like do you think you would have made any different decision like that? Those kinds of questions.
Instead we get really generic questions. We get just meaningless platitudes. She rambles off and talks a little bit. I made some notes, but basically she has a nice exchange with Jonathan, like who cares, nothing interesting there. She had some kind of funny conversation with Sam N. That was amusing, but like there was nothing there meaningful. I thought she was Thomas N. I thought this is where you saw like some good media training, but also just sort of tired, where she beat him down for what he did wrong, but at the same time she also did compliment him. The give and the take. Okay, fine, it was a fair exchange. What I don't like is that nobody can kind of do that in, kind of in turn, right? You kind of just have to sit there and take it. It's not a fair fight, so to speak. But I do think that, at least it was a fair exchange with Thomas N. And then we go into the Sam M thing, which we can talk about separately, which was just a disaster for her. And then we have just another set of platitudes with Grant and just meaningless, whatever. Like, nobody, there was literally nothing interesting in this entire exchange. We learned nothing about her. We learned nothing about her journey. We learned nothing about what her big takeaways were.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, we missed opportunities there, and me, like, again, always trying to rationalize why things are the way that they are. My only rationalization could be that they save some of those questions for like the Bachelor happy hour podcast or Bachelor, whatever it's called, podcast, the franchises podcast, like that. They're, so they can go a little bit deeper. That's the only thing I can think of, because I feel like in the past, not recent past, but in the past, we have had more of those, like a little bit more
Depthy, meaty.
Yeah, depth in those. The other thing that I find really fascinating is that I saw it with Joey, but with Joey, it made sense that like he was beloved on his tell all. And it was like almost odd, right? Like that he had nothing to necessarily answer to, speak for, explain, no one to kind of like repair with. That was like notable. And then we get to Jen's tell all, and she gets the same treatment, but she was not the same Bachelorette.
Yeah.
It was unearned. And this was a big criticism of Gary when we watched Golden, which was like, why do we need to put the leads so high on this pedestal? They are normal, fallible human beings that also need to take accountability for their actions too. And I would have liked to see that. Not that Jesse would have had to come for Jen, but it would have been more satisfying, for her to be able to give insight about what her experience was been, for her to talk about.
Have an opportunity to take accountability for things that she very clearly did do wrong in this season.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yep. So I don't like, I don't like that. That's not fair. And as we talk about, when I say fair, I mean like the power dynamics like that exist on the show, just in the nature of what it is. One lead, 20 some odd people. It's like, it's so imbalanced. And this is in some way an opportunity to level the playing field. Like it used to be more of a dialogue between the lead and their cast. And now it's not. It's just the lead and their cast just giving them validation and affirmation and telling them how great they were. And thank you so much for the experience. I'm
so
sorry.
What you're saying is it was kind of like a massage. Yeah, like look, there's a piece I hate the most about it is it literally there's I am sure that there are people up there that have complaints about something that Jen did. We had just how she responded poorly in so many deep conversations, but no one's allowed to say that. No one's allowed to be critical of the lead. No one's allowed to ask tough questions. No one's allowed to force them to, take any accountability for their actions. Now, I get Joey really actually was a guy who didn't make very many mistakes, right? And really doesn't have to atone for too many things. So following that up is difficult. And I understand that. And I give all the sympathy to anybody who would have to follow Joey. I get that. But, just because Joey didn't make very many mistakes that he has to atone to, and his tell-alls were really boring as a result, doesn't mean that's got the new precedent that we're setting. I just, this was a 2-hour episode where we learned nothing new. We gained no insight whatsoever into really anybody. And I don't know why Jen eliminated some of the men. We could have found that out. We don't know why she kept some of the men as long as she did. We could have, dived into that. We don't even know, like, even a basic question, like, what was your metric? How were you making decisions? Like these aren't even hard questions. These are just like, give us some insight into your process, even nothing. And so it was just this entire sit down with Jen was a complete miss across the board for me.
Let's get into the meat of it with Sam M.
So look, here's my big complaint. Okay. So she goes down and they leave Grant for last, but Sam M is second last, right? She goes and has a couple of exchanges with the different guys, and they're mostly pleasant. And then it gets to Sam M. And here's the problem. She makes her statement about Sam M. And it's fair and delivered reasonably well. And then she stops and takes a breath. And I said to myself, Jen, excellent job. You nailed that. And then she starts talking again. And I was like, oh, you're not done. And she starts to elevate her tone and go into attack mode. And the attack mode in my mind was an awful look. It did not land well. And the problem was Sam M had already apologized, fake apology or not. He had already apologized. He had already gotten recognition from Jesse.
But
that
not to her.
But hold on. He had already gotten recognition as an audience member. He had already gotten recognition from Jesse that sounds like you learned. There was another person, I don't know who it was on stage, but one of the guys on stage had already said, you know what, seems like you learned from it. I'm really happy to see that. So he's already gotten recognition from two people that he's taken accountability for his actions and he's trying to grow. And so like that's what the recent memory is of what we have seen. And we see him in a very calm and non-escalated state. So I thought it was really ill-advised for Jen to, kind of go into attack mode. She should have stopped, when she had the chance. Here's the problem. She goes into attack mode and it doesn't land well. And then she finally stops. I'm like, that was bad, Jen, but you know what? It's okay. It's not the end of the world. But no, she was taking another breath and then escalates and goes again. And it goes even harder. And now I'm like, holy cow, what are you doing? This is terrible. Like you are, and he's still sitting here. He's just kind of taking the beating. And again, so now for the third time, she stops. And now I'm like, Jen, please be done. Please be done. Right. And, it seems like he's done. So Sam says, he just owns it. Like, yeah, I understand. It is what it is. I apologize, kind of now, again, not genuine, but very calm, basically says, sure, I will concede all of your points. And, I apologize and I just have to do better. And what does Jen then do? For the fourth time now, she escalates higher. And now she comes in with a super condescending, I want what's best for you. I want you to grow from this. And none of it lands. I mean, she basically 4 times she starts talking when she should not have started talking. And each time she escalates, each time it sounds even worse. It comes across as more petty. It comes across as more immature. It comes across as more condescending. And every time there was a breath and a pause, and it was like, this is where you could stop. And she and it was a hard watch.
Well, first question, do you think that she was reading off a teleprompter?
I didn't even consider that. That's a good question. I don't know. Do they? I mean,
it was so scripted. It was so
scripted,
perfectly scripted.
Yeah, she had been practicing that. There's no question about it.
Well, that's. I want to get to that practicing thing. So here's the thing. There's definitely mixed reviews in terms of the way that Jen's monologue was received. I'm sure you can imagine, as you referenced in your opening monologue, that there are people that are applauding Jen. There are people that love this, feel like, yes, girl, get it. And then there are people that are seeing it similar to you in that, like, this didn't read quite right. You took it too far, moving away from the delivery of how she said it. What she said was quite pointed and harsh. And some of the things that she was kind of accusing him of being kind of aggressive and a bully are things that she was kind of like doing back herself to him. Yep. And so I think in my opinion, I was somewhere in the middle. Like there was a part, like as a viewer, there was a part of me that felt so satisfied to kind of have someone say these things to Sam's face. But as a mature late 30s therapist, there was another part of me that, like, I was like, oh gosh, no, like similar to you. And so I have a couple of thoughts on it. I'm going to talk for a little bit. And so please pause me as I do, because there are a couple of thoughts mixed in here. One is, I had a lot of empathy for Jen here because it must have been so hard for her to watch this back and to see what she saw and to feel like a fool. And to feel like all the things that we and many other people criticized her for, to not see what we all saw must have felt embarrassing. And so I imagine that, and listen, Jen, we've been there. We've all missed the signs. Again, that's not the critical part for her. It's the empathetic part of like, I imagine this must have been a hard watch for her. To feel foolish, to feel embarrassed, to feel a little bit ashamed, to feel like she's seeing herself yet again pick a toxic person. Couldn't have been easy for her. And so when we feel some sort of shame or embarrassment, we want to lash out. We want to displace that because it doesn't feel good. And so she has this perfect opportunity and this perfect target to kind of confront this person that not only made her feel kind of shitty through the process, but now it has to feel shitty all over again, and then see the internet, meaning his family, come to his defense and say negative things about her, by the way. And so all of this builds and builds and builds, and she has this opportunity here to unleash all of the feelings, to be able to use Sam as a receptacle for all of this feeling. Some of them are for him. Meaning some of it is probably real frustration with him and finally feeling like she could say the things that she wasn't ready to say in that moment. And a lot of this was for her to expel some of her own shame and embarrassment. I think it was also for her to have this fantasy that this would make her feel better and would give her closure. What I was thinking about when Jen was speaking was like, because you had said it felt rehearsed or practiced. I don't know if this is a male thing, but I can tell you it's common amongst women. After we maybe get into some sort of altercation or someone wrongs us in some way. Do you know how many shower arguments I have had? Do you know how many times I have rehearsed what I wish I could have said to someone that pissed me off? The lather while I'm washing my hair and I'm thinking and fantasizing about what to say.
I love that you bring this up, okay? Because there is actually a really fascinating study that was done. And I might have talked about it on the podcast in the past, but what they basically did was and this was part of a larger study about basically male, female, dynamics and stuff like that. But they took 500 men and 500 women, and they told them that they were going to be in a room for 15 minutes, and they proceeded to lock them in a room for 4 hours. Okay, independently by themselves. Okay, and they then surveyed
each independently,
by yourself.
Each individual was locked in a room by themselves. Okay.
Yes. Told 15 minutes. They actually were locked in there for 4 hours. And then when they came out, the researchers asked them, "What did you think about?" Right? And overwhelmingly, women said that they were doing exactly what you said, going over conversations in their mind that they either want to have or have already had, and they could have said things differently, and arguments and stuff like that. And actually, after the 4 hours, they actually there's a big study. They actually measured, a lot of different heightened sensitivities and stuff like that. And what they basically found is that women literally made themselves crazy by thinking about all of this stuff, all these conversations. And then when they asked men the same question, basically the number one answer was, "Oh, I was just thinking about my sports team."
I was just going to say sports.
It was sports. I forget there was another. It was sports and something else. I forget what the other thing was. But it was
Roman Empire.
No, it was. But it was like equally of course. It was just I was just thinking about my sports teams and like who I'm going to draft and stuff like that. And what you actually saw is that there was no meaningful difference in terms of like men's mental state when they went in and when they came out. And so I love that you bring this up because this is a huge difference in how men and women think about things, right?
Yeah.
She's probably been stewing about this. Meanwhile, you think Sam M has stewed about this at all? No, he hasn't thought about this. You think Aaron has given much consideration about this? No, they did a little bit of prep just to figure out what they had to say. And then they were moving on with their
Sam
lives.
M probably faced a lot of internet heat in a way.
Sure.
So like he was maybe forced to think about it more, but no, I mean, yeah, I imagine Jen has been stewing in this since, the I love you bomb, months ago at this point. And here's the thing. And, we've talked about this on the podcast in many different iterations. The thing is that we always think that closure comes from these kinds of conversations, that having this, this opportunity to just tell somebody off is what's going to make us feel better. It doesn't. Closure doesn't come from this. It comes from you. Independent. You don't need someone else actually to get closure. Closure comes from within. You need to reflect on what happened. You need to grieve what happened in whatever way that means to you. And you need to find it for yourself. No one can give it to you except for you. And again, oftentimes in these kinds of not outbursts, that's a little judgy, but also kind of accurate of what happened.
It was quite accurate.
But in these confrontations like this, especially when they're one way, they are counterproductive. Because there is no resolution. We still have those feelings. And if anything, we've heightened ourselves to a point where like now we have even more emotions to contend with. And we actually end up feeling more regretful and more shameful after because of what our behavior in that moment also made us feel. We're adding to the pile of things. And in this situation where I think it was a bad look is that Jen escalates and escalates and escalates, and she is still clearly pissed. And Sam is kind of like, he's down here. He's so at a temperature zero,
he's at a solid 4.
And it's like,
level.
She has given so much power to Sam, and he owns her ass in this moment. Like she played directly into his hand yet again. And so while we go into these moments thinking that they're going to make us feel more powerful, and sometimes anger in this way, it is fiery, it is hot, it can feel in the moment really good. It's a way that we can actually concede our power, give our power away. Power comes from being able to regulate, from being able to assert ourselves, from being able to stand in our ground. And that was not what happened here.
Yeah, I completely agree. So, you talked about, power comes from being able to maintain composure and stay calm. Yeah. What we saw here was the power dynamic was Sam could regulate himself, right? And Jen could not. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, Sam is going to walk away from that conversation and he's going to be like, yeah, she yelled at me. Okay. My life is going to go on. And Jen is going to walk away from that conversation and she's going to be contending with the fact that I can't believe that he just did not care. I can't believe that now I'm taking heat from the internet and all this other stuff.
One of my favorites, I talk about it with my clients all the time. I think it's a Buddhist saying, holding on to anger is like holding hot coals and expecting the other person to get burned. And so like oftentimes like what we need to do, as you said, is just drop it. I'm not saying it's so easy as that, but or that anger is bad. Anger is really important. It's information. It tells us things, but yeah, holding on to it in this way and stewing in it is counterproductive. And yeah, I don't know what she was needing from this or what she was wanting. Sam M did not give it to her is what I'll say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean,
sorry. One more thing that I wanted to add that I alluded to earlier that I think was kind of odd, is that this conversation is one that they should have had together on the couch. I don't understand. Like, I can understand.
Oh, that's a good point. There was no situation where they put Jen with anybody on the couch.
No, correct. Which was, again, it was also weird for Jonathan to like be sent home and like do his whole thing. And then Jen comes out. Like there was no facing her. Like usually they would say like, okay, Jonathan, come down to the couch.
Like the Leslie Gary.
Exactly. Yeah. It was so that was really weird.
Pick up on that. Yeah.
And then like in this situation, what in a normal circumstance, normal for the show, Jesse would do the thing with Sam M, right? And then Jen would come out, and then Sam would turn to Jen and would say his own apology, his whatever. Like, Sam, is there anything that you want to say to Jen? Blah, blah, blah. I apologize. I've grown. Thank you for the opportunity. Whatever he said. And then Jen would have, again, they would have been literally level, and being able to have a conversation, not a monologue. That was not good conflict resolution. That was not good, anything.
And so that TV.
And so it wasn't good TV. And so I don't really know why that didn't happen, unless one or both of them was like, I'm not talking to this person. I
have a different theory. It might be a little tin hatty, but I strongly believe that production does not have confidence in Jen when she's sort of in a live situation, when they can't edit it. I don't think, I think that could have gone sideways really quickly. I think that she can get got, is how I would say it. Right.
Yeah,
I don't think that she's necessarily quick, and look, quick does not mean intelligent. These are two different things, right? There are some people
thinking
who
on
are
her
just
feet,
thinking on your feet, being able to respond quickly. Like Jeremy is a great example of somebody who's very quick, very clever, right? Like Jen is not that. And I do think that if I'm production, that I do have concerns that you put her on the couch, next to to Sam M, and she can get got. Yeah. And she could look even worse than she already looked. And the problem you run into is if they do the couch thing with Jonathan, who's not going to set her up. Like Jonathan's going to play it like straight. He's going to do exactly what he needs to do. But if you open that can of worms, if you do it for him and don't do it for Sam M, is that almost more noticeable than not doing it all? That would be my thing, because I would have concerns, not being able to edit in a live kind of situation.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
especially if you're going for the narrative of Jen is supposed to be the lead on the platform, and she's got to be the one who wins this and is right. And Sam M, we got to beat him down. Like,
I know it just wasn't a good look. I felt disappointed. I felt like Grant and Jen were owed a hot seat together. Jonathan and she were owed a hot seat together, and Sam and the audience were owed a hot seat together.
Can we get hot seats from cast members with no Jen? Like, could we have gotten a Sam N, Thomas N hot seat? Is that a thing that could happen?
Yeah, I mean, sure. Why not?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in lieu of obviously a Devin Sam M hot seat. Yeah. But Devin's not there, obviously. But that would be, like something like that would have been compelling. But again, I think once you do a face off like that,
I know,
and then you don't have the one that everyone would be waiting for, I think you almost can't. If you're not going to do it for Jen Sam, I don't think you can do it for anybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
It becomes too noticeable.
Yeah. I think I come up, again, like there's a part of me that's like, I feel satisfied that in some way that Jen got to say her piece, but I just felt like, to your point, I think it went a step too far, and I don't necessarily view it from an empowerment stance. I think there are other ways to show power, and to be empowered. That
power here, being empowered in this situation would have been saying, you know what? Yeah, I learned a lot. And Sam M didn't treat me particularly well. I realize that now. I wish the best for him. I hope he learns from it, as well. But like the reality is that, I look back on it, I feel foolish, and that's something that I need to work on. And that is empowerment. That's empowerment.
Here's the thing. We've heard a lot about Jen's toxic exes, her toxic relationships.
Exist, quite frankly. I'm on record. I don't think he exists.
Listen, and we see her attraction to Sam M as someone that can fit in that category of a toxic dynamic. We see Marcus. We see, not necessarily, I don't want to call either of them toxic, but the dynamics are toxic. Yeah. At some point, we have to look at the common denominator here. And one quote that I've been coming back to with my clients a lot lately is, One of the hardest but most important parts of healing is that we need to look for the role that we play in our own suffering. And
Great
Jen
quote.
did not take accountability here. What empowerment could have also meant was Jen owning, she alluded to it at certain points in this season, but owning, you know what, Sam? You were an echo. You reminded me so much of relationships that I'm really used to and comfortable in. And I got wrapped up in that and I let it go on for far longer than I would have liked. And I let you, and you were quite manipulative by using these words and like using physical intimacy as a way to further our relationship. I see that now. And I recognize that like, I need to look out for that in the future. Clearly, like when we were in it together, I did not see it. I feel angry at you for putting me in that position. And I feel angry at myself as well. Like that, I want that.
Yep.
I want that for her. Not, I mean, for her, you know, distant therapist. I want that, but for her, I want that so that she can get this love that she's looking for. I refuse to say ferocious love, so that she can get this love. Anyway, we've gone long on this. But.
All right, we've exhausted the Jen thing. We've said our piece. A bunch of people are going to unsubscribe and thumbs down us for our opinions because we did just all hail Jen.
Don't go.
But the good news is that even though this was like the halfway mark of the episode, it really was the end of the episode. After this, we got bloopers. I'll just say it: the bloopers were boring.
When you said the halfway part of the episode, I thought you meant this episode, and I was like,
God, no.
"Oh Lord
God.
Jesus."
I feel like we've been podcasting forever. It was like at the end of the day, there was nothing else super interesting that happened after this. We got bloopers. The bloopers were not very bloopery. They weren't that funny or that interesting. And then we basically get some more spider action with Hakeem. I thought it was really funny on the show. I thought it played less funny, the second time around.
Another bit. Yeah.
It was just another bit.
His Paradise intro is going to be with a spider, 10 out of 10.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the reality is like, so he got the second invite to Paradise. Great. I think we've said it. Hakeem is just a fun guy. I'm looking forward to seeing him on Paradise. I don't know how well he's going to do, but like, I'm excited to see him on Paradise. I'm excited to see Jonathan as well. So, but beyond that, right. They tease the finale, but again, it's all the same stuff we've already seen. So that's it. I'm happy you asked about my rose this week.
Love it. My thorn this week.
I hated to see that. So I think we can move on to Rose and Thorn. Let's
do it. What do you got?
All right. Thorns. Yes. Plural. Production. Yeah. Production. This was way too scripted. Across the board, way too scripted, and way too contrived. It was hard to watch. The format. Oh my God. Men Tell All is a dumb premise. Please give us a different format, right? Like something different, something that's more aligned with how men actually behave would be a great thing to do. But really the main thorn this week for me is the live audience. They were atrocious. They were surprised at things they shouldn't have been surprised at. They were like excited at things that they shouldn't have been excited at. They were clapping for things that had no business being clapped at. I don't know what show they were watching, but they were watching a completely different show.
Listen, they're there for 8 hours. So who knows?
It's almost over at that point.
Well, no, I mean, but who knows like what they're actually pulling audience reactions from and pasting in what we're seeing, because they're there all fucking day.
So what about you? Do you have a thorn this week?
Some of my thorns include the fact that I'm wearing shorts and every time I move my body, it looks like I have no pants on. So I just want to, let the audience know I am fully clothed, but I've been aware of that and distracted by it the entire episode. So my thorn is to myself. But I think that the other thorns I had are things that are similar to what we already discussed. Like it just felt contrived, and it felt a little too forced. I would have loved more accountability. I would love a solid apology. I would love to see that. And we just didn't get that. It was so unsatisfying in that way. I just do better, please. So I think that was largely like the big chunk of my thorn was just like, I just left feeling like it was anticlimactic. Like I'm saying, like I want a little bit more polarization. I think it was a little too nice, a little too in the middle. And that just in a charged season like this one just wasn't honest. So I just felt like, as you put it, like this is reality TV, but like this is not real.
Yeah. Sounds like you're describing a nice relaxation massage.
My rose, I have two.
Oh, wait. Is one of them Jeremy?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, what's your other one then?
Because
there wasn't much I liked about this episode, so you can't go stealing mine.
No, I really liked Jen's dress. I thought she looked very beautiful, very pretty. Chris, if you see that dress, you could buy it for me. It's pretty.
Somebody in the comments drop a link. Go do the.
I can find it. Style Spotter Instagram. I'm sure we'll have the link. I will send it to you. That's how I found Mercedes' dress, by the way.
Yeah, which we almost podcasted when we were in Mexico. We almost podcasted Mercedes' dress.
A little short.
Then we realized that you would be flashing everybody during the entirety of the episode. And I, for one, was like, hey, we're going to get to 1,000 subs real quick here. And you were like, no, we're not. And you went and changed. So that was a sad day for the podcast.
Didn't feel great. We will not turn into an OnlyFans account.
That's for certain. But all right. So
my main rose was for Jeremy. The more I see of Jeremy, the more I like Jeremy. Jeremy, you're local to us. Want to be friends? We're around the same age. Let's hang out. I think
we can meet at Stu's.
Somewhere in the city. I don't know. But again, clearly bright, intelligent guy, very witty. I loved his Mean Girls reference. It's so spot on.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Every insertion point of his was just as the kids would say, it's giving. He was giving. Like it was so good. So I love that we got to see him more, and he shined. He did the most this episode. We needed him.
Yep. Look, he did not need any sort of redemption arc. But if anybody's stock, if we want to do like a stock up, stock down, his stock, I think, went up.
Absolutely.
More than anybody else. I don't think anybody else's, I would even say, went up. Some of them went down. Most of them just stayed exactly the same. And his was probably the only one. Sam N. So I guess we'll roll into my rose. I really liked Jeremy this episode, and specifically, it was the Mean Girls reference was the what I really thought was perfect. But since we share kind of a rose, I will say that I liked how Sam N showed up. That self-deprecating. He was funny. He just sort of like admitted to things. The whole thing I talked about earlier. Like I thought Sam N did an excellent job this episode. And I think he's another one where, his stock went up in my book as well. Right. Whereas, those are probably the only two that had stock ups in my mind. Right. So.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I think Jeremy was far and away the winner of this episode.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
MVP.
Yeah. Okay. So who is the biggest loser of the episode? And we'll take Jen out of it because she was obviously the biggest loser.
Aaron.
I think that's true. Yeah, I agree with that. Right. He was dying on a hill that he did not need to die on, and his own twin brother threw him under the bus. It was he did not look good this episode.
Arguably, for a very different reason, I think Thomas was also the biggest loser because, he was so irrelevant. He could have gotten dragged this episode, but he remained a sidekick. He remained, just not relevant. He just didn't do enough. And so I was surprised that he didn't get a little bit more heat. And I think in a sense that also made him one of the bigger losers.
Yeah, because even though he started a bunch of incidents, we'll call them, nobody cared enough to show it. And if it did happen, production cut all of that because it just, they didn't think it was interesting enough. So yeah. I agree. I mean, it might not make him the biggest loser of the episode, but it definitely is indicative of where he kind of stood in the eyes of the other men in the house, as well as what production thinks of him, where he was just irrelevant. Yep. I mean, when you consider it, night one or Ricky had more screen time, right?
Yeah, he moved the needle more than most, actually.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 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 I would, when they first announced some of the people that were there, Brett and Ricky, and I was like, these guys did nothing. I kind of got Brett. Brett got a lot of love, but Ricky didn't seem like he had any real. There wasn't like a big following for pro Ricky people, and so I was really unsure why he was there. But no, he turned out right, and in some ways, I'm kind of hoping we see him on Paradise, because my question is does he have a little bit of an Olivia arc potentially in him, right? Olivia was a night oneer. No one knew who she was. And then she went out and she was the all-star of,
she was the
VIP
star.
9. Absolutely. She became the narrator. She was center of the action. She was so good, on that show. And I almost wonder, does Ricky have it in him to have sort of a similar arc? And I'm interested to see if I would like production to give him the opportunity to see if he's got a similar arc. I would be into that. All right. I think it's time to get out of here.
I know it's been a long time, but before we go, can I just tell you one thing?
Sure.
I love you, you freaking idiot.
You didn't say, of course I love you.
You're criticizing my I love you. But you know who else I love is all of you for being here, for subscribing, for giving us that thumbs up, for all of the comments, for all of the feedback. Thank you so much. We will be back next week with the finale episode. It's 3 hours long on Tuesday, September 3rd. We're getting the proposal. We're getting the after the final rose. So we are excited to chat all about that with you next week. Until then, if you want to catch up with us, you can follow us on Instagram at Reactivity TV. You can follow me at Amy Albero, LCSW. Send us emails as well with any feedback, suggestions. If there's other shows you think we should be covering, email us. Let us know. You can email us at reactivitytv@revivecfw.com. We will see you next week. Bye.
See ya.